We're brothers, we're happy and we're singing and we're colored. Give me a high five.
What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and I'm joined by my brother, by my main man, Big Game James, and it's another episode of Best of Enemy. So today it's a little bit different, James. We have a very special guest coming on a little bit later on. We're gonna show that interview. Obviously, if you are a channel member, you probably got to see that a little bit early. But that we do have Kyle Yeomans on at the end of this show. We're gonna break down a little bit of Cowboys OTA. But before we get into any football talk, James. If you don't mind, I do feel like it's my duty as a representative of Philadelphia Eagles and kind of the Philadelphia, fan base, to just take a second and honestly give all my condolences, all my prayers, all my thoughts to everybody involved, anybody affected by, the occurrence that happened this morning. Obviously, there's about 3 or 4, already claimed to be, killed and everything. I don't even know how to really say it. Tired of, seeing this type of news, but I just want to, let you guys know that you are in my thoughts and my prayers, and I'm sure James feels the same sentiment. But we're just gonna try and do what we know how to do best, which is talk sports. But yeah, so we'll get into it. But what's going on, James? How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. Just another day, another day, like you said, living. Just kind of bouncing off what you said about that. It's kind of crazy what's going on out here, man. And hopefully, I don't really know if there's an answer to it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if there's really an answer to what's going on in society right now. But only thing we can do is really pray and keep all those others in prayer, and hopefully things will continue to get better as we move on. In these years, but. Besides that, we had a little tragedy this past week as well. Marion Barber, running back, he passed away, and I was a big fan of Marion Barber, and he was called the Barbarian, and he meant a lot to the Cowboys community. Died at a very young age, 38 years old. So just a lot of things going on. So my prayers up for the people out there and for the Barber family as well.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of it's always tragic when you lose someone great to the community, obviously, and then the mass shooting is just it's getting crazy. This world is wild. But like we said, what we know is sports. What gets us by in our day to day is sports. So I'm glad that we're at least able to have this platform where we can all connect. Right, we can all just kind of connect and forget about the real world, as we say sometimes, right? So, but
Hmm.
let's talk some sports, James. Let's talk some sports. So
Right,
obviously we got OTAs going, right? We got
right.
everything popping. Like I said, we did get to talk to Kyle Yeoman, so we did break down your camp pretty well. So I want to know, off the top, just off the beginning, because the Philadelphia Eagles camp right now has been very slow. I'm going to be honest with you. We finally got a little bit of news. It seems like Jalen Hurts is doing well in the 7-on-7s. It seems like there's some good chemistry between him and the offense already. So that's nice to see, but we'll see what happens. What are you hearing on the Cowboys side? How are you feeling going into next week, right? It's Sunday. How are you feeling going into Monday?
I mean, OTAs right now is pretty much what I thought it would be. So I'm not really taking any big things because it is OTAs. It is just kind of starting out. I think the only thing I'm kind of looking at is, what they're talking about the offensive line, in particular Tyler Smith. He's the main guy I've been kind of keeping my eye on. And then when we talked about talk with Kyle, just the influx or the flex of the position. But OTAs is what I kind of thought it would be, kind of slow. There's a lot of injuries going on right now. We got it kind of going on my chat. There's possibly maybe a proposed trade deal with Tristan Hill. He's a defensive tackle from the old regime, and he may not have a spot, so try to get something for him. And so something that might be in the air. I think they said N'Keal Harry, I believe a receiver, I can't remember, or someone else. So something like that might happen, which I could probably welcome. But it's pretty slow around the Cowboys area too. I think I'm just really waiting to see what Micah Parsons. I'm excited what he's going to do year two. Be honest with you, big dog.
Yeah, I think this is the time where you start hearing all those. With me, it's look. I know I'm an Eagles fan and I'm supposed to be just excited about everything I hear, but I really want to see it. I really want to see the improvement from Jalen Hurts. Obviously, he's
Mm-hmm.
gotten a little bit of a improved throwing motion, but we've watched football long enough, James. I know you probably can agree. Yeah, I've seen football long enough to seen some great, quick highlights from camp. So I'm still a little bit worried. Still want to see what's going on. But this is the time to team build, right? This is the time to kind of get
Right.
everybody together. And we did see that big softball game that Micah Parsons was a part of, and feels
Right.
good to already say we got a dub on you guys, right? AJ Brown boys went out there and already got a dub on Micah Parsons. But how are your rookies kind of fitting in and everything? Have you heard anything, specific about your rookies kind of trying to get their footing in this camp so far?
I think the biggest thing with the rookies that are going on right now, Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, Jalen Tolbert, he's got a little injury bug right now for him. Obviously, we probably know that when it's happened with rookies. They're saying Matt Waletzko was looking the part as far as, a potential. He's got he's young, came from a small school, but they love the upside. But I think the guy that they're really talking about right now is Tyler Smith, man. A lot of people, Michael Parsons said it personally, that he really liked his game. He got stoned one time by Tyler Smith, and they flexed him. Like I said, they played him at left guard. They have played him at left tackle. And a lot of people are saying the same things about him, that once he gets his hands on you, you can't move. And I talked about that before, is that they were saying that same thing about Tyron Smith when he came out of USC, that, hey, this dude is built like a Greek god. He's not built like the regular offensive tackle. And once he stones you, it's over. So those are the things I kind of get excited about. And, left guard, Joe, may not be his ending position. It could be left tackle because that's what he played at college. And then, like I said, right now, we got Connor McGovern, who they held from trade offers, and I'm like, do something with him. And if you could see a Tyron Smith going out, we already talked about it. That could be the flex, and then slide Connor McGovern, and don't waste those players. Because if you're not going to do nothing with Connor McGovern, like you maybe dangling Tristan Hill, get something for him instead of just losing him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I know you're talking offensive line. And especially rookies on the offensive line. You look at the Philadelphia Eagles on the other side of that. There are talks that Isaac Seumalo, who's not a rookie, but he is a veteran. He seems to be having the major footing in the right guard room, or excuse me, yeah, the right guard position. Looking like he's just basically battling with the rookie that we do have, Luke Jurgens. So it should be interesting. It should be, or Cam Jurgens. Why do I always call him Luke?
Right.
I always call him Luke. You called me out on that like 5 times. But no, Cam Jurgens. So it seems like Cam Jurgens is probably the only rookie on that O-line. But a rookie that's out there in Philadelphia really making some headway is your boy, is Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is being talked about a lot, talked very highly of too, talked about like as a leader already. So that's something I'm excited for.
Well, see, here's the thing. I wanted to ask you a few things about your camp. You just talked
Yeah.
about Nakobe Dean. I'm gonna bounce off you. I know you said it's been quiet around the building, but I listened to your show and you said you got Nick Sirianni's kind of giving up the play calling and he's moving it to someone else, and he kind of came over as the guy to be the play caller. Obviously, you got AJ Brown in the mix. So, how do you kind of feel? You got Nakobe Dean. What's Jordan Davis? What's the word on him? I know you got a couple. You got the tight end from SMU. What's kind of your thoughts? You got did your veterans mix in too? So kind of just want to hear what's going on with your camp, even though it's been quiet.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Jordan Davis, I won't sit here and say I've heard a whole bunch about him, but I think that's a good thing. I think that he's everything they kind of assumed he was going to be, especially this early in camp, right? But yeah, so Jordan Davis, I'm excited about. As far as the play calling, I did say in that video that I am a little bit nervous about that. I mean, I've heard this is more so from, fan slash people that I kind of, like I don't want to say this is from like the organization, but it sounded like a lot of people think that it was because Nick Sirianni felt overwhelmed. If that's the case and he felt overwhelmed as a play caller, that does get me a little bit worried because, like you said, we did bring him over here to kind of be that guy. Is it a good thing that he has like the wherewithal to say, maybe I need to give this up? Probably. That's probably a good thing that he understands. I can't just bullheaded head something. If it's not working, I got to find some other way of making it work. But it does make me nervous. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. It does make me nervous that Shane Steichen, a guy that did take over apparently last year towards the end of the year, So maybe I don't know. I don't really know what to think of it. Is it really just makes me nervous depending on how this happened. Like to me, I didn't think of it as he's overwhelmed at first, right? That somebody had to say that to me, and I had to kind of step back, like maybe that is the reason. But to me, it was more so like you're letting people kind of spread their wings, see what they can do. So I'm hoping that's the case more so than he just didn't want to keep on making those calls. And it'll be interesting to see how much of that is true. A lot of people say that their offensive coordinator calls all the shots, but at the end of the day, they're probably what I'm saying? They probably have their
Hmm.
hand in that cookie jar a little bit more than they're probably putting on. So I would not be surprised at all to see, it really be more of a Nick Sirianni type offense. But we'll see. Shane Steichen is an interesting type of guy because if he has a good year as an offensive coordinator, there's a lot of guys that can stand to really benefit from a good year from this offense. You look at our offensive coordinator. Obviously, we're talking about Shane Steichen. He'll really
Hmm.
benefit from this. He might be looking at a head coaching spot if he has a really good year offensively. You look at our quarterback coach, Brian Johnson. If Jalen Hurts goes out there and balls out, that man, that man might be looking at an offensive coordinator spot, and that's another thing that kind of, this is again tin hat on the head, but Brian Johnson might be getting groomed to take Shane Steichen's spot. So they might be trying to make Shane Steichen look good
Right.
throughout this year, to try and be like, all right, we'll go somewhere and get yourself a little head coaching job so we can bring up Brian Johnson. So there's a lot to it. And another thing that, you add to that, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with the Eagles that's kind of worrying me right now. But I don't think a lot
Hmm.
of Eagle fans are even really looking at it. But Andy Weidel, our former, he was like a football operations guy. He was like the head of all our scouts. We obviously lost him to the Steelers. We didn't hire anybody like as a direct replacement, And
Right.
one thing that us as Eagles fans get worried about is our owner and our GM Howie Roseman getting their hands a little bit too much into it. When you take
Hmm.
away the guy that's kind of your liaison between your scouts and your GM, gets me a little bit worried because Howie Roseman isn't good with dealing with people. So I get a
Right.
little bit
Right.
worried
Right.
there. So
Right.
there is a lot of stuff that's not happening on the field that I'm kind of looking at and being like, this is going to be interesting. We're either going to look very smart or we're going to look really, really crazy again. Because you go back to 2017, we let go of our whole medical team after 2017. We have not been healthy since. You know what I'm saying? Like we had a
Hmm.
couple scrapes
Hmm.
and bruises throughout that year. Don't get me wrong, but nothing to this level. Like we have not been healthy since we've gotten rid of all of them. So I get nervous that we just basically redid the whole scouting department, didn't really give them a boss, in the most layman's of terms. Like we didn't give them a boss. So I don't know. I get a little bit nervous. Like, I would be nervous if I'm working at, a restaurant and now my boss is the district manager, right? Like
Right.
that's a
Right.
little bit weird. That's a little bit
Right.
scary. So I know that's a long-winded answer, but I think I'm more worried about off the field right now than I am on the field. But I guess we'll see. I guess we shall see.
We definitely gonna see. But hey,
Yeah.
I like hearing. Like I said, you know how much I like N'Kobe Dean. And how I think that's going to be a great addition for you. I think that is going to be probably one of the better sleeper picks in the whole draft. And I definitely going to keep my eye on him because I think he's going to be somebody like that. Now, I got somebody who in my chat, I believe Blue 365. He says, "What's Joe's confidence in Hurts?"
I seen that. I seen that. Look, man. If you follow my channel, you know how I am. James, you know how I am.
I know how
I
you
need
are.
to I need to see him improve, man. It's not, I don't want to say I don't have confidence in him. I'm just one of those I have to see it to believe it type guys. I know what he is. I'll put it like this. I have confidence that we've built a good enough team around him that we should still get better as a team. Right now, that doesn't really bode too much for his individual confidence. I mean, all right. But I think I think we know what he is. I think we know what he is, and I think that we know what we need to do in order to allow him to get, incrementally better and build a team around him. Do I think that he's a guy that's going to lead us to the promised land all by himself and, do all this? I don't. If he does become that, awesome. I would love to be wrong about that, but I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a guy that you just build the team around. If you can build a really good team around him, you can probably get a good, showing from him, but I don't know. I just don't think that he's
But
as
you don't
great
think
of a weapon.
you don't think he's the type of guy, even though he might have the leadership. You don't think he's the type of guy that if things fall around him, maybe don't have the talent that he can put the team on his back and win games.
I mean, it depends. It depends on what. It depends on what perceive as putting the team on your back. Like I think he can make
Let's
those
say you got.
plays.
Let's say okay. So let's
Like
say like a AJ Brown. AJ Brown goes down and Dallas Gover goes down. Do you feel confident when you go into a game that you minus in big play guys that he still has the ability to rise above that and win games for you?
yeah, on an individual basis, yeah. I don't think
Okay.
I don't think if you take away all our weapons and ask him to go a full season and be your MVP, I don't think he's there yet. But I think that
Mm-hmm.
he can win you games, like even within the game. I think that he can make those big plays that change the momentum of the game. So I do believe that. I just don't think that I just haven't seen it throughout a season yet. So that's my big thing. That's my biggest
All
thing
right.
right
See, I got my Cowboys people. I like how we got the dual thing because we got my channel going too. And they
now.
got some questions for you, Joe. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all my peoples out there. But Micah said, this is from my guy, the Lunatic. He said, Micah has said, fear his speed because that's one of his biggest things, and he can counteract different moves by just using one thing. Says, what should we fear about the roster in Dallas about our rivals in Philly? What's one thing we should really fear about you guys? If the Dallas Cowboys looking at the Philadelphia Eagles right now, Joe, what's the main thing we should be concerned about you guys when playing you
I like that.
right
That's a
now?
good question. That's a good question. Our spirit. No, I'm just kidding. No.
Then we got
We-
you.
right. No, I think it's the unpredictability. I don't know what our team is going to be right now. If we're going into the first game, I can answer this better, throughout the season. But right now, I
Mhm.
think it is that unpredictability because you obviously had the number one run game last year. I believe saying run game. That is an obvious answer, but you've gotten so much better at the offensive, wide receiving position. You've gotten, stronger on that offensive line. You're hoping that Jalen Hurts is able to take that next step. So to me, it's the unpredictability that you don't know what you're going to get from this team. I think that this offense is built very well. It's built very balanced that you aren't going to sit here and say, all right, we just got to take out Devontae Smith and we're good. No, you still got to worry about A.J. Brown. And if you stop our pass game, you still got to worry about our run game. So it comes down to Jalen Hurts at the end of the day. But I don't believe this is a team that you can just put 8 in the box against anymore. I don't believe this is a team that you can dare to get the ball in the receiver's hands, right? Like a lot of times last year, I felt there was times that teams were just like, even if you complete it, Hurts, we're good. We'll tackle whoever you throw it to. We're not really
Mhm.
too worried about it. I don't think you can do that with an AJ Brown. AJ Brown is gonna, knock some heads off. So I think it's the unpredictability, and that might be a little bit of a cop out, but I think it's the truth. I think that you just don't know what you're gonna get from a game to game basis anymore from this team, and our defense is better. You know what I'm saying? Like our defensive line is youth. There's youth injected in there. There's still that good. We got Brandon Graham coming back. You still got Fletcher Cox. You still got a Javon Hargrave. So I think that where we were good is getting better. Last year was a very, very underwhelming year for our defensive line, and that's where our marquee is. I don't see us going bad on that defensive line 2 years in a row. But offensively, I think it's just the unpredictability of what we may or may not be. But it does hinge on Jalen Hurts. If he can't throw the ball more than 20 yards, people are gonna, call that out. They're gonna find that out soon. But I think right now you can't go into the first game and say, all right, let's just make Hurts, pass the ball. Because AJ Brown could beat you by himself, in my opinion. Real talk. If you allow him to.
Well, we're gonna see because I'm a kind of go agree with you. Say the unpredictability, because listen, a lot of people in my chat. If I would say one thing that scares me about you guys, I'm not. I'm honestly, I need to see what Jalen Hurts. I'm. To me, he's still your biggest question mark in my opinion. He's the guy that has to prove it this year, in my opinion. So until that happens, I'm not going to fear that offense. And I mean, I know you got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith in year 2. You got the run game. Yes, I know, but I still feel like he's got to make those plays. Right now, for me, if I were to be worried about anything with the Eagles, would be defense.
Yeah.
You guys added defense. You got a really good young linebacker you already talked to showing up in camp. You got Jordan Davis. You brought back Fletcher Cox. You got a good young defensive front. You added Bradbury along with Slay. So it's going to be a lot more competitive. So I would say from that angle, I would say I would be looking at that defense a little bit more ahead of the offense, and we'd have to see about Jalen Hurts to me still. And I feel like that's the reason why I still take us over you guys because quarterback play as of right now.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough to say, but I will say this to combat that. The defense, if the defense gets better, which it should get way better, this team, even if it's the exact same offense as last year, that same exact obviously it won't be, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Even if we get the same output, if we're the number 12, scoring team next year, and our defense gets better as they should, especially as much better as we have on paper, then yeah,
Mhm.
it's gonna be scary. But I'm not. I don't think our defense should be something that scares you. I think you're gonna get yours. Like at the end of the day, it's the NFL right now is just built that way. Like I want a defense that can make stops, but you need a defense that can just make stops in key situations. At this point, I feel like the NFL is just built. If you have a good offense, you're going to put up points. You know what I'm saying? Like so, I just need to see our defense get incrementally better. Like we should though. We should be. I don't think it's the one main thing though. That's not going to be the thing to me that wins us games. If we win games, it's going to be because this offense holds on to this ball, because the offense can kind of carry this team. Because no matter what, we've seen it even with Chip Kelly. When Chip Kelly was here, our defense was on the field for like 45 minutes a game. They were out there more than half of the game. So that's really what it comes down to. That's really what comes down to me is this offense being able to control the tempo of the game and control the style of game that we play, because we can't catch up. Well, I just don't believe it yet. I just don't believe it yet. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well, we about to like I said, we about to see and find out.
I just hope that the Eagles go out there and don't make me look dumb, because you know how much I've been talking my talk. So
Yeah, yeah,
like,
you've been hyping your boys up. Dream team, like Rome said, dream team.
see, but it's not even to that. I wouldn't even say it's a dream team. I would say that it's just probably the
I
best
mean, a
team
lot
that
of
we
people
built in a
y'all
long
hyping
time.
right, but a lot of people hyping y'all right now, saying y'all gonna win the East and y'all gonna do this and y'all gonna do that because of free agency and the draft. So y'all do got a lot of hype y'all got behind us right now, like you would say Dallas had hype last year. Y'all mean because we came in with a lot of a lot of parts came in, things happened and changed, and so it was looking like it could be. So it's going to be a lot of pressure in Philly as well because a lot of people talking about y'all going to overtake the division. Y'all took a next step, and I will see.
Hey, well, we don't stay down long. I will say that we had that one bad year. Obviously, made the playoffs right after that, and we usually get better and better. So we'll see what happens. I really, true hope. I hope that this is that year that we take a big step forward. I still don't think this is the year that we go and be a Super Bowl competitive team. If I'm being 100% honest, I still think we're probably a year away from that. But who knows? We still got a little bit of money. You guys got some good money too, but well, we still got a little bit of
We
money,
ain't
and
spending that money.
yeah, yeah, I
Man,
know.
y'all know we ain't spending that money. Stephen Jones ain't spending none of that money. He probably gonna roll that money over, or he gonna probably. I mean, I told him, man, get at least get Anthony Barr. These are the two things think they should do, in my opinion. If they looking at that dealing Tristan Hill, I wouldn't mind them dealing for a young receiver. But I said let's add an Anthony Barr for a year or two, or let's add like a defensive tackle like a Linville Joseph for like a year just to be a stopgap to let other because we're still to me a little a suspect at linebacker in my opinion. God forbid, like I said, you never want injuries. You don't want the main dog to ever go down on an injury. You know what I'm saying? But injuries happen, and if you're still rehabbing our Jabril Cox, so we still need depth along there. And then on the defensive line, yes, we got Carlos Watkins back, but he's not a true one to me, not a big run stuffer to me. He's not. We need a guy like a 330 or 340 guy. And like I said, year two, Bohanna, we want him to step up. You got a good young rookie in Ridgeway, but he's a rookie. He's a fifth rounder. You don't know. So I think you would jump somebody firstly in there and say, let's get a vet and let these other guys kind of, find their way. So that's what I would like for them to look at their money at. But once again, it's Stephen Jones, and I can definitely see him rolling money over to try to say, oh, we got contracts coming up and we need that money.
Nah, facts. And shout out to everybody in the chat, man. We got 70 plus people in here.
Yeah, shout
Make
out,
sure to
baby.
hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family if you guys are on either page. If you're on my page, going over the James page, be sure to hit that subscribe. And likewise, Chewy wants to know, James, would you like to see Hitchens back?
Mm-hmm. No.
That was quick.
I don't want Anthony Hitchens. And Anthony Hitchens is not a bad player, but I just feel like, it wouldn't be I wouldn't say if they got him, I'd be like, man, why'd they get him? I wouldn't be mad like that. But to me, my personal opinion, and people keep on saying Anthony Barr is washed up, he's done, or I would look at a Deion Jones too. But I just feel like for the familiarity with the system, the veteran leadership that he brings to the table, he had 72 tackles last year, and he missed 5 games. And people talking about he's washed up and this and that. He had like 3 sacks, had 3 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown, but he had 2 interceptions in 1 game, 72 tackles, and 11 games. Come on, bro. He ain't done.
Hey, I respect that. And now I believe Blue. We'll take a couple more questions and then we'll go into the interview. But yeah, so I believe Blue says, does Joe fear Dak? Sorry if he's answered. We haven't answered. I've answered that a million times. I don't think I've answered that today, but do I do I fear Dak? Not one bit. Not one bit. It's no disrespect. It's no disrespect.
I ain't mad at you because I don't fear no Jalen Hurts.
You shouldn't, as you shouldn't. I don't think that when we lost to you guys, it was because you guys had Dak and we didn't. I don't think that that's the factor in those.
How not?
I just don't think so. It was because our defense was absolute garbage. Our defense was absolute
But what did
trash.
Dak do to your what did your defense? What did Dak?
But
what
we
is
also
Dak,
gave
Dak,
you.
But what has Dak been doing to your defense since he been in the league, bro?
You got to also. This is how I look at it. Okay, this is how I look at it. I look at it like this: the Philadelphia Eagles offense and defense were working against each other for the past 2 years. The Philadelphia Eagles defense would give short fields to every opposing offense. It was like clockwork. It was like clockwork. If you were moving more than 50 yards, I was surprised. So, I mean, yeah, he was out there chopping us up. And I mean, it is what it is. But I blame it more on our defense not being able to make a stop for that to save their life. I blame it more on, Jalen Hurts not being able to keep the ball on our team's hands. He gave you guys like 2 or 3 easy ass interceptions. So hey, that's really what I put it on. That's really what I put. I don't think Dak is the main reason. We lost to you without Dak. Didn't we lose to you guys when you didn't have Dak? We lost to Andy Dalton. Am I tweaking? Didn't we lose to Andy Dalton?
Yeah, no. Did y'all lose to Andy Dalton? Yes, y'all did. Yes, y'all did. I think y'all did.
We did. So I don't think it's all Dak. I mean, he's a great quarterback. I'll never say that he isn't, but he's not the reason why I get nervous about the Cowboys. I get nervous because it seems like we just choke every time we play the Dallas Cowboys, at least the past 3 times, which is just frustrating. So,
well, all I'm going to say is this. You may not fear him, and I can get the angle you coming from, but all I'm going to say is when I look at Dak Prescott's game against you, especially after the 2017 season when he kind of matured more, he's been kind of just doing what he's doing against y'all, and he's won games against y'all. And when we play y'all, I feel confident because I feel like he kind of has that, I don't know, the thing over y'all. And as long as that's going on right now, I'm going to go ahead and with it. But like I said, Dak is a career 96 rating against you, averaging, 245 yards a game, 66 pass completion. I mean, dog, he's winning against y'all. And so I feel good every time he plays against y'all. And until that changes, I like the matchup when we play y'all. And like I said, the first matchup is not because I feel like y'all gonna be better than us. It's just feel like we have that come down game from the Rams. Because I feel like we can sweep y'all.
We gonna probably sweep y'all this year. That's really how
y'all not sweeping us. Y'all not sweeping Dallas.
When it does,
bro,
we're gonna make a bet before me and you gonna.
We definitely gonna make a bet, but y'all definitely ain't sweeping. Y'all definitely not sweeping us, dog. Y'all definitely not sweeping us.
I can't wait. I'm with all the smoke this year. I'm with all the smoke this year. But I want to ask you a question before we get into this interview, okay? Because I you got to make sure the family's taken care of. So obviously my family be watching and asking questions. So shout out to my girl's father. She wants to know because he wants to know. This is a good question too because realistically, do you think Dak Prescott, realistically wants to be in Dallas for the long haul? Like, do you feel like and listen, hear me out, right? You look at all the things that you've said in this offseason, how they don't want to pay, all the stuff that he went through, even just trying to get his bag. Is there any, in your opinion? Obviously, we don't know. We're not in Dak's head. But do you think there could be any animosity? Like, do you think there could ever be a situation where Dak says, you know what? Let me just move the heck on?
That is a daggone good question because, he grew up a Cowboys fan. His whole family Cowboys fans. That's what he grew up. He told his family when he was young, I want to be a quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. So it'd be very hard for me to believe that he would just want to move away from that. So I will say this. In my opinion, no. I think Dak really loves Dallas, really wants to be in Dallas, wants to stay in Dallas, and wants to finish his career in Dallas. I really believe that. Now, do I believe the front office, particularly Stephen Jones, believes that? No, I don't. And that's just how I feel. I feel like, he did the right thing by signing Dak. But too many people in the building, Jerry and Jones and them were like, is Dak our guy? Is Dak our guy? And I hear Stephen Jones saying, oh, he costs a lot of money. And so that's why I just wondered, did they really believe in him? And they were just saying, hey, let's go ahead and do this because it's the best thing we need to do right now. But I don't know if they're on him long term, and that's what I got to see. So I feel like there's still pressure on Dak no matter what anybody says. To me, in my opinion, I still feel like there's pressure on him within the building. And we'll see.
Yeah, when he asked me when I got that text, I was like, "Oh, that's actually a really good question." I didn't even think of that. But shout out to everybody in the chat. We got 90 people in the chat between all the channels. We got a bunch of different channels going right now. Also on Big Game James, it's on your channel as well, right, James?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's on your channel as well. So we seeing everybody in here. I think we should get into this interview. How
Let's
you
get that
feeling?
interview popping. Let's get
You
that
ready
interview
for it?
popping.
All right, so
Yes,
we
sir.
like we said, we do have we did get Kyle Yeomans from Dallas Cowboys Nation on here. So we definitely gonna break down this OTAs. I'm excited for you guys to hear this. We're gonna get our beautiful mugs off this screen. And then this is so we can say bye here. I mean,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Because after this interview, it's over. But so we're gonna play the interview and get out of here. Is there anything you want to say before here, James?
Oh, no, man. Just make sure you continue to support this. We did the draft. It's been a great time. We've seen this thing grow from leaps and bounds from the beginning of this, Joe. And, I'm really excited to I was excited how we did this draft and cover that. Now I'm really excited for us to do this regular season between us. And I think it's going to be really exciting. So please, everybody from the Philly side, please, everybody from the Cowboys side, please continue to support both of us because this thing is going to really blow up during the regular season.
Yeah, this is gonna be great, and we were definitely talking to Kyle after the show, and we might be able to pull some like pretty cool things off during the season. I might be going down to Dallas, maybe hook up with you guys. So definitely, this isn't over, guys. The live isn't over. We're just saying bye because this is a pre-recorded interview, but y'all know what it is, man. I appreciate y'all. So we out of here, man. Peace. What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, here with my guy Big Game James. It is another episode of Best of Enemies. Now, I want to say this. I want to say this one thing. You can see on the screen that I am outnumbered, right? But I have the utmost respect for both of these guys. Kyle came on here last year when it was in the midst of Philly versus Cowboys and represented his team very, very well. So I know I'm excited for this. I know a lot of people are as well. We have Kyle Yeomans on the show. How's it going, Kyle? Great to have you back.
Hey, glad to be back. And anytime I get to hang out with Joe, I get to hang out with James, I get a little excited because these are my guys. I like talking ball. You guys are right there with me. I love talking shop and just getting into it. So glad to be back on with you guys anytime.
Definitely. Now you guys are holding a 3-game win streak. James throws it in my face a lot. So I'm gonna throw my question out there because this is kind of just to get us our engines going, right? We're in the midst of OTAs. You guys are coming off of a 12-win season. Where are you guys right now as an organization? What is the focus for the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, I think the focus is trying to continue the success that they saw last year on defense and try and see an uptick in the offense, most notably on the offensive line, and then the guys that are surrounding Dak Prescott. I think as an organization, the question of where you guys are is a tough one to answer because a lot of people see this offseason as a step back. You lose Amari Cooper, you lose Randy Gregory, Cedric Wilson's now a Dolphin, Connor Williams, who, even though there were some split opinions on Connor Williams, he was a starter on your offensive line. He's no longer in the fold as well as he's a Dolphin as well. But I think you look at this offseason as a minor reconstruction. It's not a rebuild by any means. You still have the core members of the team that was really successful a year ago at 12-5 with Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, Dak, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, and then Zach Martin and Tyron Smith on your offensive line. The core members are still there, but there's a lot of shifting and a lot of working and a lot of competition outside of those core members. And I think that's something that Mike McCarthy wanted to manufacture. Dan Quinn certainly is trying to do so on the defensive side of the football. And then I think the pressure is really on Kellen Moore to get the most out of those weapons on the offensive side too.
You can take it, James.
Well, hey, I'm just bouncing off that. I think the last thing I heard when you said Kellen Moore, I think there is a lot of pressure on him because a lot of things were exposed through the higher ups in the NFL hierarchy. Then the rumblings started talking within the fan base. And so now you've been in the system for a while. Now people are saying, well, you lost Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was making Dak. So now I feel like now he really has to really jump into his bag because a lot of people were saying the offense was being figured out toward the end of the season. And Dallas didn't have a counter punch. I think that's what's going to be something that's going to be seen. But what I want to ask you, Kyle, is there's been a lot of talk with Tyler Smith, obviously with the first round draft pick, and a lot of people are being high up on him. But I want to ask you about Connor McGovern. And the reason why I want to ask you about him is because I know Tyler Smith has played a little bit of left tackle, in the OTAs. Let's say if a Tyler Smith goes down, a Tyron Smith goes down, is it set in stone that there's going to be a swing tackle for him, or would a Tyler Smith switch out there? Would a Connor McGovern go in there? Or is a Connor McGovern just relegated to a backup role this season?
I don't know. It's really interesting to look at with OTAs. You could say Connor McGovern is the starter right now because he's been the one that is rolling with the ones at the moment at left guard. And for those Philly fans out there, Connor McGovern was a third-round pick back in 2019, a guy who the Cowboys were really high on coming out of Penn State, played center in college, kind of moved over to left guard, but hasn't played that center position at all recently. Well, throughout OTAs, he's getting center snaps. He's at left guard. He's at center. And then Tyler Smith, who's the rookie out of Tulsa who played offensive tackle in college, he's now getting guard snaps, but also tackle snaps. He's kind of going back and forth. I think if Tyron Smith, with this current roster, were to go down, they don't go out and add a veteran tackle. They don't bring in anybody else in free agency or make a trade, do something like that. If it stays the same, with this roster, I think Tyler Smith is your swing tackle. If Terrence Steele goes down, I think Tyler Smith would go to right tackle. Connor McGovern would be your left guard. I think if Tyron Smith goes down, Tyler Smith would turn around and be your left tackle. That's kind of the thought process right now because last year they had plenty of times throughout the season where the offensive line wasn't completely healthy. They had to find some guys to fill holes, and those holes weren't filled in great ways. And that's, I think, one of their big mindsets throughout OTAs is get everyone snaps at every position. Even Brandon Smith was up there getting some snaps, or Braylon Smith, rather, was getting some snaps. Zach Martin was taking a step back, and he was running with the twos just to get some guys next to new individuals. That's the biggest thing right now with this offensive line is trying to find a cohesive unit because they didn't have that in the past. And I think both Connor McGovern and Tyler Smith are huge parts of that.
Okay. And if you don't mind, I want to hop in and kind of jump in on that because as an Eagles fan, our OTAs, I'm sure you guys have been very, very busy covering your own. So it might be hard to kind of go around the league, but the Eagles have really went light loads. It has been very, very light work. Nothing too extenuous. I think only 7 days of actual camp is what we're running. But what is the mindset of the Cowboys? Are you guys, because I know you guys are kind of still a old school organization mindset. Like, are you guys still going out there bumping and bruising? Is it still, live content? Like, what does your OTAs look like? Just to kind of make me feel a little bit better as an Eagles fan, if it's similar.
I honestly, and I've looked at some of the Eagles stuff too. I've seen Devontae Smith's had a great camp. Jalen Smith's looking really good. And then, of course, you've got your offensive line and your defensive line really reconstructed there too. But I think it is different. I really do. I think this is a more training camps level type of practice than it would be closer to an OTA. There's no pads. I mean, you're still not popping, but Micah Parsons is putting Terrence Steele on his backside. Coming off of the line of scrimmage. I mean, it is physical, even without the pads being on. They've got the helmets on. They've got the shells. They're running full speed for the most part. There's a lot of install side of the practice. They go for about 45 minutes or so where it's individual drills. They've got about 20 minutes of the 7-on-7 kind of mixed into that 45 minutes. And then on the back end, it's a lot of install, a lot of walkthrough, run through is what they call it. So it's an easier practice, I think, compared to, of course, back in the 90s and the 80s and so on and so forth. However, I think compared to the modern NFL, it's still very physical for an early offseason practice, at least so far to this point.
Hey, yeah. Now I just kind of want to bounce off of that, Kyle. Now I got a questions about the receiving core. Now, obviously, we just talked about the Philly receiving core, and a lot of people have said, "Hey, that pushed them up as being one of the top receiving cores in the NFC East." Obviously, getting AJ Brown. I like Devontae Smith. I think he is a good receiver, and they have some depth now, so that their receiving core may be set. But now let's come to the Cowboys. We obviously know about Michael Gallup, and I want to ask you a question about that. Like, where's your trajectory? How long do you think he's going to out? But there's few people I want to ask you about. Simi Fehoko and TJ Vasher. And the things I want to ask about is TJ Vasher actually really going to have a chance? Because if I look at the roster as it's set right now, you got CeeDee Lamb as your one. Michael Gallup is guaranteed. They brought back Noah Brown. He hasn't been anywhere. I think he's coming back. I think they want to have a plan for James Washington because I don't think he got the opportunities in Pittsburgh. So I think he's going to be on that roster as well. So now you got only maybe one or two spots possibly. Does a Simi Fehoko or a TJ Vasser have a realistic chance to actually be on this roster and even play and do anything?
No, it's a great question. And I think those two guys are on the bubble in terms of making the roster and or being a practice squad guy. Because, I mean, even out of the guys you mentioned, let's start at the top. CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, James Washington, and don't forget about Jalen Tolbert.
And that's who I forgot. And that's who I forgot. He's guaranteed, and that's my fault.
That's your guy too. I'm surprised you forgot him.
And I'm really
I was getting all into it. I messed up.
I do it all the time, James. You're good. You're good. But with Jalen Tolbert kind of thrown into that mix, it makes it tough because you're pushing guys like Noah Brown down. You're pushing Simi Fehoko down the list. And then there's this really good group of wide receivers, I think, as an undrafted free agent class.
Yes.
Not only last year, but this year too, because you've got Brandon Smith, TJ Vasher that were in that 2020 draft or undrafted class. And then you've got Dontario Drummond, Ty Freifogel, who in 2020 was the Big Ten receiver of the year. I know everybody up there in Philly probably got a chance to see him up close and personal for a little bit there. Jakari Roberson, that was out of Wake Forest. They've got a list of guys that they really like, but I think up at the top of the bubble is TJ Vasher, just an extender, a catch radius that's hard to be matched. 6'6". He's got some hop to his games, some crazy athleticism. And then you turn around, you have Simi Fehoko, who was a 5th-round draft pick a year ago, who did relatively nothing throughout camp last year, really was not a part of the practice squad, or at least the active roster, rather, for a good amount of time. He was severely limited in what he could do, not because of injury, but just because of skill level. And so I think it's going to be tough for both of those guys to make this roster when it comes down to game day. However, I think both of them have had great starts to OTAs. They're just going to have to keep that consistently all the way through training camp if they're even going to have a shot to be on that list of a really crowded wide receiver room.
Roger that.
Yeah, and while you're on wide receivers, I kind of want to ask you this question. We've seen, the Philadelphia Eagles obviously make a major change in the way that they operate their offense. You guys still are strong at that wide receiver spot, and I'm not going to sit here and act like you're not, but it is obviously a difference, right? You don't have that top heaviness that you did last year. Do you think, in your opinion, that might change the philosophy at all? I'm not expecting, the change that we made. That was kind of drastic, but do you think you guys are going to lean a little bit more on that run game game, try and get Zeke going a little bit more, maybe, get the backup that Pollard, everybody loves Pollard. So do you think the running game kind of becomes a little bit more of your identity going into this year?
I think that's kind of a must. Really, last year, the back half of the season, a big reason why Dallas was not as successful offensively was because the run game was stagnant. You didn't have a healthy Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard had the plantar fasciitis that he was kind of working through. You never really had the offensive line set in place, like I talked about a couple minutes ago. Those factors all together kind of limited what the offense could do, and teams were daring Dak Prescott to throw the football, daring him to beat them deep. And of course, he wasn't necessarily 100% healthy all the way through the year as well. He had battled some injuries really for the first time in his career. So I think you're spot on. I think without Amari Cooper in the fold, they're expecting CeeDee Lamb to take that next step. They're expecting Michael Gallup when he comes back and healthy. And James, you mentioned him a moment ago. I forgot to get to it, but I think it'll probably be week 4 or 5 before he gets back. Okay. There's a chance that he could get back earlier. He's out there working on the bands. He's working through the tear that he suffered against the Cardinals in week 17. But overall, if he's on the PUP list at the start of the season and he misses the first 4 games because of it, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised. I would love for him to be back in the fold a lot earlier than that. I think the Cowboys are there too. They just don't want to rush things, especially with Joe, you just said, without Amari Cooper in the fold, you have to be careful with that wide receiver room because they are still a strength, but they're not as deep. That's the pure thing of it. They're strong. CeeDee Lamb could be a number 1 in any offense in the NFL. I truly believe that. I said that even if he wouldn't have worn the star or fell to pick number 17 in 2020, he was the number 1 receiver for me in that draft, and I still believe that. He is a phenomenal player. However, if he doesn't necessarily take that next step, this receiving core doesn't necessarily go deep enough to where you can rely on a James Washington or a Simi Fehoko. That's where you need Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb to really provide some pressure, especially when now the entire division seemingly has some weapons to work with. And, I mean, I'm as big of a fan of Devontae Smith as I was of CeeDee Lamb coming out of college as well. I think he's a phenomenal player. It takes a little bit to get into the NFL. You saw that just because of the body type coming out of college, but he's going to be a phenomenal receiver, and the Cowboys are going to have to keep pace.
Yep. I totally agree with that. I mean, I feel you that is with Devontae Smith, but you know what? I don't want to just do a big turn, Joe, but I do want to jump on the defensive side of the ball because it's poignant to what you guys are. Now, we saw what the Eagles did in the draft, Kyle. We saw they went after my guy. I love Nakobe Dean. Me and Joe had our show, and he was hitting me up because I was yelling at the TV like, "Why ain't you get him yet?" And he was texting me like, we got."
It was a great day. It was a great day.
And obviously they got Jordan Davis. They've added pieces on the defense. Now, coming from the Cowboys' perspective, I want to ask you 2 things. Chauncey Golston, who you personally said put on a lot of pounds, and when I said he came out of Iowa, I said he was better inside than outside. I said that was more of his strength than the outside. So now he's put on pounds, so now we're going to see him probably playing more of the 3-tech, and I want to ask you what his role is going to be, and then I want to talk about Sam Williams. You got Dante Fowler, you brought back Dorrance Armstrong Jr. Is Sam Williams really going to be, are they going to push him? He's a 2nd-round draft pick. Should he be a starting defensive end, or how is that kind of going to pan out in your opinion?
Yeah, I'll start with Chauncey Golston specifically because I had a great conversation with him after the first OTA practice that the media was allowed to go to. And he told me, he's like, this has kind of been in the works since I got here. I played edge at Iowa. I moved inside a little bit, and sometimes I rushed inside off of the edge. But Dan Quinn really saw what I could bring as an interior guy. So, the 3 technique is certainly on the table. I've seen him play a lot of 5 technique because he still has the athleticism. Says he put on 20 pounds, but he certainly has some speed to his game too. He still has that get off that you really liked as a 3rd-round player out of Iowa. In that 2021 class. So I really do like the thought process of using Golston in a versatility role, whether he's coming off the edge or if he's inside. That 20-plus pounds, he looks bigger, but it's lean. It's a lean 20 pounds, and he's able to kind of move with it as well. And then on the second level, like you mentioned with Sam Williams as a 2nd-round pick, I think if he's able to produce early, he'll easily be slid into that starter role. Right
Okay.
now, I still think it's going to be a Dante Fowler Jr., Dorrance Armstrong battle opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence. But if you have him in a rotation, which I fully expect him to be in the rotation when the first week of the season comes around, and throughout the preseason, you're going to see plenty of Sam Williams rushing the passer. But I expect him to be in the rotation. If he can play at the level that they anticipate him playing to, he could be the starter by the time the bye week comes around or even before that. Kind of what Micah Parsons did last year. Now, I'm not comparing Micah and Sam Williams. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But
I
Micah
feel
Parsons, as a linebacker, was in the rotation week 1, played a decent amount of snaps in that first game against the Buccaneers. But it was week 2 when he found his strength of rushing the passer, where he became a solidified part of that defense. Sam Williams isn't going to be as solidified early on as a Micah Parsons, but he's certainly going to have his opportunities. And if he takes advantage of them, he could really make some noise in his first season.
Yeah, yes, I'm glad you brought up the defense, though, and I'm glad you specifically brought up draft, because I wanted to ask, obviously last year you guys go out there and you guys went into, if there was an aisle in Walmart that just had defensive players, that's where you lived. You just went out there, got a whole bunch of defensive players. It was awesome.
You're spot on.
I respect it, though. I respect the heck out of it. And then this year, you guys kind of doubled down. Obviously, you got a Tolbert. You guys did get some Tyler Smith. You got some other weapons. But you guys did go out there and get some more defensive guys. My question to you is really, was this a concerted effort, even going back to last year? Was this like a concerted effort on the part of the Dallas Cowboys to say, we need to go out there and be a defensive, because you can almost argue that your defense led you a lot of times last year, and moving forward, they could possibly be the marquee of your team. Do you think that was a concerted effort by this organization trying to get this defense better, or kind of just you fell into players and it worked out, how it's kind of working out?
Yeah, I definitely think it was, because if you go all the way back to 2019, the defense was middle of the road, bottom of the road, especially toward the end of that season. They did not play specifically well. You go into the draft, you're expecting to go get some defensive talent up front. CeeDee Lamb falls in your lap and you make the pick. You do what you got to do. You did just that. But you made up for it later with the picks of Trayvon Diggs, Neville Gallimore, and then you added some offensive guys later in the draft following the initial pick of CeeDee Lamb. Last year was all defense in the draft. Then they go out and they find Dan Quinn after 2020 was a complete disaster on defense. You go get Dan Quinn. That's where the conservative effort really began, or the aggressive effort, I would even dare to say, is having Dan Quinn in the building on guys that he trusts, on the system that he trusts, and being able to adjust to the players' skill sets as opposed to the scheme skill sets. And I think that's something that any NFL team in the league can learn from, is build toward your players. That's what Dan Quinn did. He didn't come in and say, we're going to run exactly what we did in Atlanta because that's what I want to do. He came in and said, okay, so this guy can do that. Neville Gallimore, he could do this a little bit. Oh, DeMarcus Lawrence, he could definitely do that. So can Randy Gregory. We've got Leighton Vander Esch. Let's build a scheme that fits that. That's where the effort really was. The personnel just kind of was added into that along the way.
That makes sense.
Now here, and I want to bounce off of that question now, Kyle, because I want to just kind of throw free agency in here. We saw what the Eagles did in free agency. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. I told Joe this himself. I was mad. I didn't want to admit this to him, but I said, hey, y'all are very aggressive in free agency. I mean, it was aggressive. It was aggressive. I liked it. I can't.
He said
lie.
He said it was good. He said it was good.
I said it was good. I don't like you Eagles, but I like the aggressiveness, especially they got Hassan Reddick. They scooped up Bradbury. They got Kaiser, I believe, at the linebacker position. They got players. So going to Dallas, you get Aleo Collins money. Obviously, you got the draft picks got to be signed. Now, my question to you, Kyle, is, I've been pumping up an Anthony Barr because I still feel like they need a veteran linebacker. I've been saying this since December. They need a veteran linebacker. Not saying Micah Parsons isn't all that, because he's growing into his role perfectly. But if you have an injury and somebody goes down, I'd rather have a veteran who's established in the game that can bring something, and he has familiarity with the coaching staff. So do you see the Cowboys just rolling this money over, saying, hey, we need to sign players for next year and beyond? Or do you think they will actually go out there and maybe get a defensive free agent, linebacker, possibly defensive tackle? I brought up Linval Joseph for the 0-1 text. Now, I love they got Ridgeway, and I like how they got Bohanna, but those guys are still unproven. So if something happens like that, would you see them tapping into that this year, or is this something that's going to be rolled over to next year, in your opinion?
I think it's far more likely that you would see a linebacker added because you mentioned defensive tackle. Don't forget about Carlos Watkins. He played a lot of that nose tackle, that one technique last year as well. And they brought him back, and they really like what he brings from a veteran standpoint in that position group. And with Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore, they can kind of flex into that one technique too. You can put Golston outside. They've got names there in the middle that they could really, I think they feel comfortable about. Going back to what I was talking about, the wide receivers, and trust me, there's a point to this. When I was talking about the top two guys with Lamb and Gallup, and then after that, it's a lot of guys that are unproven. That's where the depth kind of struggles. There's a lot of names there. There's a lot of talent there, but there's unproven question marks within that wide receiver room. You could say the exact same thing about the linebackers. You could say it about Micah Parsons. You could say it about Leighton Vander Esch. They're the ones at the top that have played well and have had some solidified side of things previously. But if Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons go down, what's the next step? Where do you go from there? Because it's Luke Gifford, it's Jabril Cox who's hurt, it's Devin Harper who you drafted in the 6th round. I think you go and get a veteran linebacker. And Mike McCarthy's even brought it up previously in press conferences. He's been asked, where would you go and get it? It would be a veteran linebacker and a veteran offensive tackle. If they're going to make some moves in free agency, those are the two spots that they do it. They've got young guys there that they like, but there's still some question marks there. So I wouldn't be surprised. Look at last year with the safety position. It was the same kind of thing. Oh, Donovan Wilson's coming off a great year. You sign this guy like Jalen Kearse, who ends up being one of the MVPs of your defense. But outside of that, where do you see the safety position? It's a big question mark. They go out and they sign Malik Hooker. He plays well in the games that he comes in and plays, and they sign him to a deal, and he's back for this season as well. I think they could totally do something very similar. It may take until they're out now, Oxnard, to make a move like that, but definitely I would not rule out going and getting a linebacker or going and getting an offensive tackle.
Got that.
My camera was tired of hearing all the Dallas Cowboys talk.
That's
That's
I
okay.
decided to just take a nap. I don't know what happened.
We know y'all hate over there. It's all good.
But I want to put a bow on this. And I'll let you ask one more question, James, before we get out of here. But my last question I want to ask is really pertaining to the whole East. You know, look, last year, like I said, we did have you on before the Eagles Cowboys game, which I'm probably going to be reaching out to you again. So be ready for that message. But either way, how are you feeling about this East so far? I mean, I feel like every team can, in some way, maybe pout their chest a little bit and say that at the very least they closed the gap. How, as a Cowboys fan, do you feel, the East has gotten this year off season?
No, I agree, because even going into last year, you looked at it as, okay, Philly's going to be really strong. Dallas is going to be strong. Washington, meh. And then there's the Giants, and we all know about the Giants. I don't think you can say that about all the way through. The Giants went out and made some moves. They've improved their football team. They're taking a step up. I don't think they're going to be the doormat that they have been. Still got a long way to go. I don't put them on the same level as Philadelphia or Dallas, but I do think they improved their football team. Washington's a step up from that. They're going to get healthy again on the defensive side. They do have a quarterback, even though it's Carson Wentz, and I know you guys know plenty about Carson Wentz. He's still a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, and he's got some weapons to throw the football to. And I think outside of Indianapolis, I don't think that scheme fit him as well as they were anticipating. Washington, I think, will fit him as a better cohesive unit than it would be previously to what he dealt with. So I think Washington's going to be decent, but again, and I'm not saying this just because I'm on the show, but I think it's Philly and Dallas that are going to dictate who's going to win this division. I think Philadelphia closed the gap because they have these weapons. Jalen Hurts has another year under his book. He's becoming that leader that they anticipated him to be at some point throughout his career. And if it doesn't work, they go out and you get a guy next year. You've got plenty of draft capital to try and make it happen. But they're going to make Jalen Hurts work. They're going to make sure they know whether or not Jalen Hurts is the guy this year. So there's a lot of pressure on him to perform, and I think he will do an admirable job of doing so. And then with the Cowboys specifically, they may not have taken a step forward like we wanted to this offseason, but I don't think the regression is going to be as severe as what other people think. It's going to be tough. I don't know if 12-4 is achievable because going undefeated in your division is a hard thing to do, and you did that last season. I think it's going to be a tight race all the way up until the end, and I think it'll be Philly and Dallas duking it out. And that Christmas Eve game at AT&T Stadium, that might be what decides the division, if we're being really honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just my kind of bow onto it, and my kind of last question to you, Kyle. Just kind of flowing off what you were saying about the Philly Dallas. I mean, me and Joe have been talking about it. I said it myself. I still felt like Dallas would win the division, but I said Philly would be right there with it. I even said Philly would beat Dallas the first game, and then that second game would be the key game where, you know, I feel like we take it. But if we're really talking about this, I want to ask you the mindset of the Cowboys. Honestly, there's a lot of frustrated Cowboys fans out there because of the season of last year. A lot of Cowboys fans felt like that was our year last year. We had everything we needed to just go ahead and take it, and we fell flat again. So, you know, it's a lot of doubters out there, Kyle.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the mindset right now, or what is it want to be perceived to tell us fans to say, hey, we messed up, but it's going to be different, you know, because heard Dak say, hey, we're out to prove people wrong, but what's the kind of the mindset right now?
No, I think you're spot on, and it's hard to see because there is some frustration. I was plenty frustrated. I was out there at the stadium. We had a great pregame show. We were ready to do it again in a week, and they went out and they fell flat. They got bullied in their own house by San Francisco, and we're being honest, that's what happened. They were out-toughed. They were out-schemed. They were out-coached. There's a chip on the shoulder in the building this year, and it's a little bit different than what it has been in the past. And I think the fan base being frustrated, maybe that kind of leaked its way into the building because the coaching staff sees it as we've got to get tougher. And you could see that from the draft class. Look at the guys that they drafted. May not have been the most talented guys that were on the board, but I'll tell you what, they are nasty on film. I mean, Tyler Smith to Sam Williams to Jalen Tolbert to Jake Ferguson to Matt Waletzko in the middle of the round. I mean, they went out and got some tough guys to come in and build a culture that we're not going to get bullied. And these veterans are fed up. You hear DeMarcus Lawrence talking about chip on the shoulder. Even Micah Parsons after a year says, you know what, I had a great year, but I need to up it. It's got to be better. There is a conservative effort for lack of a better term, it's a pissed off mentality. They're upset about what happened last year, and they want to try and fix it. And I can kind of feel that in each of these practices. There's an intensity and there's a next level that they're trying to reach, and they're going to try and do it as quickly as possible.
Hey, I like hearing that.
I feel like that one kid at the dinner table listening to his big brothers talk about something he has no idea about.
I know, that's kind of what it feels like too.
I love it.
Joe, I can't really talk about the mindset of the Eagles and what they're doing in their OTAs. I haven't been.
Yeah, they're thinking about Dallas every time they snap the ball, Kyle. So don't worry about that. Every time,
Nick Sirianni's wearing his shirt. We're doing something.
When you're wearing Beat Dallas week, I already know where your mind's at.
You already know. Next time I'm gonna wear my shirt. I'm gonna go buy one of those.
Okay, but we don't. Hey, just remember, Joe, we'll never have beat Phillies week.
No,
hey, Kyle, I appreciate you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. This was a lot of fun.
Yes,
I think that everybody watching is going to get a lot of value out of this. But before we do get out of here, man, Kyle, is there anything you need to plug? Anything that they can catch you on coming up? What you got going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, keep on tuning in to DallasCowboys.com. We have plenty of content being pumped out on there. We've got the Talking Cowboys podcast that'll continue for a little bit, and then we'll get to training camp. We'll have training camp live, all sorts of stuff for you. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle_Yeomans. It's exactly what I put here in the little blurb right here. So you can just follow that on Twitter and keep up to date with everything Cowboys. I think you guys do a fantastic job. I've talked to you about that specifically in the past, and continued good luck to you guys, and can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you so much, man. But yeah, man, we're about to get out of here, man. That is James right there with that ugly flag behind him. But anyways, next we got an Eagles guy on here. I just went through 30 minutes of you guys.
I'm ready for y'all.
But yeah, that's James, man. I'm Joe, and we are the best of enemies, man. Peace.
We're brothers, we're happy and we're singing and we're colors.